Gewürztraminer and Riesling, which are both known to be more sweeter grapes, but the Gewürztraminer will also add a bit of an acidic taste to it as well. This is going to have a lot of floral notes. This also pairs very well with something with a little bit of a spice to it, so a bit of spicy Thai is something that pairs very well with this. So I'm going to pour the wine. So on tour, we will be using the same glasses because we'll be trying different wine throughout the tour. So make sure to hold on to your glass. Everyone's ready, we're going to head on with the tour. We'll have 40 acres of vineyards on this property. The other 4 properties are going to make up the other 140 acres. In this field that we're going to go look at, this is going to be Cabernet Sauvignon. Cabernet Sauvignon is one of the most popular red wines around the world, which is also red wine that was never originally supposed to exist. So this is the Cabernet Sauvignon is a crossbred grape. So it is back in the 1700s in Bordeaux, France, where it originated. The Cabernet Sauvignon, the way it was created was by the Cabernet Franc and the Sauvignon Blanc. The vines for that were too close to each other, where they combined and created a new type of vine. Now that vine is one of the biggest most important wines around the world. Back in Bordeaux, France, where it's very popular, but also in areas like Napa Valley in California, where it's probably, if not, is the most popular vine down there as well. Another thing is, you'll see, you come up closer if you want. You'll see that this is the very start of the season right now. So you'll start to see some of the grapes are starting to come out right now. These are the red vines here. One thing you can tell between the difference between a red grapevine and a white grapevine is actually the color of the leaves. This row right here is going to be a white grapevine. So you can tell that the color is going to be a little bit lighter on these for the grapevines. The green grapevines, while the red grapevines are going to be a little bit darker. But it's also, the shape of the leaf is going to be different as well. So leaves are going to have, for different vines, they're going to have different shapes. So one way you can help tell the difference between the vines. Right now, these vines here, they woke up a little bit earlier in the year. These are more used to those colder temperatures. You'll see that the grapes are starting to bud even a bit more on them. You can come up close and see them. Compared to those ones where they're just starting to, these ones you'll see them at the grocery store. But then the wine grapes can be quarter to half the size of that. And they're also going to be a lot sweeter. So the sugar content in them is much higher, which you'll be able to tell that more when we try ice wine at the end of the tour. But now we're going to actually head over the vines around here. This was originally a cherry orchard. So back in the day, when they first bought the property, vineyards weren't a thing here in Niagara-on-the-Lake. This area was more peaches and cherries. So when the Pillitteries bought this in 1965, this whole property was full of cherry trees. So over the years, when they started figuring out that vines could be grown here and could be grown very well, that's when Mr. Pillitteri decided to start putting vineyards across the property. When it comes to our original orchard, we actually still have 2 trees from that original cherry orchard on the property. So as you'll see, right here, the tree on the left is going to be the oldest cherry tree in Niagara. It's also going to be the last of that generation of cherry trees as well. So this is a Tertarian cherry tree. This is the last one in Niagara, but it's also going to be over 100 years old now. So this tree has been in that same spot even before the family moved here. When they bought the property, that cherry tree has always been there, and they've just built around it. You'll also tell by the roots of it is a lot wider compared to the other cherry tree that's going to be over a bit. That one over there is only about 45 years old. So we'll come over here more. I know. just stand to the side quickly while this group passes, and then I'll tell you about this statue. So this statue here is called a ricina, which that is what the family calls grapes, because the Pillitteri family originally came from Sicily. So back in Sicily, what they would call grapes, well, a group of grapes would be ricina. But this also represents something else. So as you'll see, it's made out of stainless steel and copper. So here in North America, the way we make wine is called the New World wine style of making wine. So that's aging our wines in stainless steel and copper. But the Pillitteries also come from a very long line of winemakers back in Europe as well. So that's why we'll have this barrel wall to the side. So this is going to be made with 100 barrels that we've used from past vintages. This also represents the old world style of making wine. So that's why with the Pillitteri family, they represent both, as they come from European winemakers, but also they want to represent the way that wine's made here in North America as well. So now we'll actually head upstairs into our main production room. So the way that red wine actually gets the red color is, to start off, the juice in a red grape is still going to be clear. So it's going to make a white wine. But when it comes to getting that red color, that's what will happen during the fermentation period. So during the fermentation period, which is around a month, is how long we ferment the wine, the juice for to create the alcohol. To get the red color, we have to add the red skins into the juice during the fermentation. So it's going to mix inside, and what it's going to do is it's going to take that red color out of the skins and add it into the wine. But for this type of rosé, we're gonna only ferment the skins for a short period of the time. So what I mean by that is sometimes it can be only up to 72 hours of that 1 month. So that's how you get that light pink color as well. So with this rosé, you're going to get notes of a normal Cabernet Sauvignon from it, but you're going to get some nice light white wine notes as well. So this one, I personally find you get a nice cherry taste to it, but then you'll also get a bit of a peach and pear as well. One last thing about this wine before I pour it. So one thing about this bottle, which I've never seen another winery do, I've only ever seen this done in one other alcohol business, was with the label, when it's cold, the label will be one color. But if you add a little bit of heat to it, change colors. So a better understanding is when it's room temperature, it's one color. And then once it's cold, it'll start to go to nine. This is what we do with all of our Sun Series wines as well. So our our sunlight white, and then our sun night. That one we're sold out of right now. Yeah, sorry. But we'll actually now try the wine. When it comes to the fermentation process, you're not going to be mixing those skins in with it. So you also don't have to be, when we make red wine, we also have to be watching it a lot. So I'll go through that in a moment, but I'm going to first explain about this room, our main production room. So this is where we're going to start the process of our winemaking. So after we bring the grapes in, first we're going to have we have two machines that are going to now remove the stems and leaves that have been that were connected. As the machines we use, what they do is when they take the grapes off the vines, it's just shaking them off. So sometimes the stems and leaves will still stay on with that. But after we do the stem removal and the leaves, taking the leaves off as well, we'll put them into that big red and silver machine over there to the side. So that machine is called a bladder press. So usually when people think of pressing something, they think of pressing at high pressure. So you'll push inwards at a high pressure. This one is going to be a bit different. So this one expands from the middle outwards at a light pressure. The reason why we do that is we only want the juice from the skin. We don't want to actually ruin those grapes. So by pressing them lightly, we're not going to be ruining the rest of the grape. As, like I was saying, we need those skins for the fermentation process. So if we're making any of our skin fermented wines, so some white wine we will ferment with the skin to give it a bit of a darker color, but we'll also need it for our rosés and our reds. So that's what we'll use those tall tanks at the top for. So those tall tanks have a machine in them that is going to act as a French press. So it's going to push the skins down and mix them. The reason why we do that is because if we just let those skins sit in there during the fermentation, those skins would start to harden and build up at the top of the tank. So what happens, because to create the alcohol, we have the juice in there, but we also add a special type of yeast that is for wine. And then oxygen is also pulled into the tank as well. So with all that mixing and then the skins on top, those skins harden and eventually start to mold. So that's why we need to be constantly mixing them. So that's what those tall tanks are going to do. So it makes it a bit different than just a normal white wine. So something like a Pinot Grigio, we just add the juice in with the yeast and then the oxygen comes in. We don't have to be mixing it all the time. We just have to be more temperature control for that. So also during the fermentation process, there's a lot of carbon dioxide that builds up in this room. So the reason for that is the tanks will act as our lungs. So they pull in oxygen, and then they use the oxygen and then push out carbon dioxide. So during that, if we build up with too much carbon dioxide, we will use these big fans at the top. So these big fans are specially made to only pull carbon dioxide. So what will happen is we'll open these doors, the big doors at the side. So the carbon dioxide and oxygen are at different weight densities. So one can't flow through the other. So we use these fans to pull the carbon dioxide up to the top layers of the room so that oxygen can easily flow in at the bottom. This is something we always have to watch out for, as carbon dioxide is toxic and we can't actually inhale it. So when we make it so the carbon dioxide is pulled up, it's easier because there are people in here while that's happening. The reason it's going to be like that in most alcohol businesses, because great alcohol, there's going to be some sort of fermentation period. It's known to happen in breweries as well, and all wineries know what's going to happen. People will ask us, why don't we use an air filtration system? The reason why is Pillittery is part of the Sustainable Winemaking Ontario Certified. So to stay sustainable, one of the things is energy efficiency. So we use this over that air filtration because an air filtration system you need to keep on for very long periods of time. For this, we only turn these on for 10 to 15 minutes when we have to. So we're saving a lot of energy with these. But another thing with getting that, staying certified as a sustainable winemaking winery, we also need to know what we're going to be putting out in our fields as a fertilizer. So what we will do is we actually reuse the skins from the grapes, and those skins are going to be put out back in the field to use as a natural fertilizer. So the reason why is when the vines give the grapes all the nutrients they need, most of that nutrients is sitting in the skin. So when we bring it back out there, that nutrients is now going right back into the vines. So we're reusing and recycling.
Thank you.
Show the different types of ice wines we have made in the past. Here at Pillitteri, we're known for our ice wine mainly, as we are the largest single producers in the world of ice wine, and also the largest exporters of ice wine. So when it comes to ice wine, the reason why we make so much of it and it becomes so important is because of that first bottle in the middle. So you're going to see that is going to be the only bottle with a handwritten label on it. So the reason why it has a handwritten label is the first ever ice wine we made. So back in 1988, if it was in the 1800s, that'd been a little too early. But back in 1988, Mr. Pillitteri and his son Charlie made their first ever ice wine. So this ice wine was the Vidal ice wine, which is going to be the most popular type of ice wine you see now. But what they did was after they made this ice wine, they thought this ice wine was going to be, they thought it was pretty good. But they didn't know how it compared to the other wineries in the area, like names like Pillitteries and Skillen, the big names here. But it's also, they weren't part of the winery at that time. This was still going to be 5 years before they opened as a winery. So after they made it, Charlie decided he wanted to see how it's going to compare to the other ice wines around Niagara. So what he did one night is he snuck into his dad's house and stole a few bottles. So what he did with those few bottles was he actually entered them in an ice wine competition. So he'd be going up against wineries like Enniskillen, which Enniskillen is the first winery here in Niagara, and if I'm correct, the first in Canada as well. So after the competition, a few days later, they actually got placed. The way his dad found out was in the local newspaper. He didn't want, because he knew it was going to show up in the newspaper. He decided, let's just wait until it shows up. So after he found out, over the next 5 years, they started to create more and more wine. Not just those everyday wines like you've tried so far, but also more ice wine. So by the time it hit 1993, that's when they officially opened. Back then, they were only making 9,000 cases of wine a year, compared to now, where we're making about 180,000 cases a year. And over half of our production every year will be ice wine alone. So another thing is, when it comes to ice wine, people always ask, why is ice wine so popular here? Why is everyone making it here? The reason is, 90% of the world's ice wine is going to be created here in Niagara-on-the-Lake. The other 10% is going to be split up between other countries around the world. Germany, which is the first ever country that created ice wine, Austria, a little bit in Switzerland, and then a little bit in northern parts of New York in the US. But when it comes to actually making it, there's a bunch of regulations behind it. So the first regulation is going to be temperature. So it has to be -8 degrees or colder for a minimum of 3 days. And after that hits, we have to harvest it at the dead of night. So it has to be completely dark out for us to harvest it. The reason why is if we did it during the day, the second we pulled the grapes off the vines, they would start to defrost due to the sun. So we have to make sure that they're staying frozen all the way up to the press. So now when we press it, we're not going to use that same press, as that only presses at light pressure. Now, since they're frozen, we need them to press at a higher pressure. Because the only thing that we actually harvest from the grape during ice wine is the 1 drop of syrupy sugar it will give. So when the grapes freeze, everything freezes in the grape but the sugar. So because sugar is a natural preservative, so it doesn't freeze. The only way it freezes is it has to be way too cold, and it's not cold that we can get it. So the type of press we'll do is actually going to look like the old press, the presses back in the day. So these ones, back in the day, there'd be grapes in it, and then people would walk around it with that bowl and push it. But now, when it comes to ice wine, we'll use a similar basket, but 50 times the size of it. Then we'll also have a bowl like that at the bottom as well. What's different now is we actually are going to use a hydraulic press that's going to push it all down. So each grape's going to drop one drop of sugar, like I said. Compared to a normal everyday wine, when we press those, they drop 10 to 12 drops of juice. So it also takes 10 to 12 times the amount of grapes to make a bottle of ice wine over that everyday type of wine. But enough about ice wine. Now we're going to go and see best room of the whole tour, which is going to be our barrel cellar. I don't. Does anyone think there's so we'll head inside. It's nice and cold in there too.
Yeah, it's chilly. Oh, look at this, eh?
Barrel aging process. We're gonna go and try the third wine on the tour. So the third wine we're going to try on tour today is going to be our 2019 vintage of Merlot. That's perfect. We are going to get to open session. We're actually getting lots on this too.
Yeah, they get the tables and the chairs. It's like the Beatles table and chairs.
After I talk about the barrel aging process, I'll tell you the story behind the chairs. So this third wine is going to be our 2019 Merlot that is barrel aged in French oak for 19 months. So you're going to get a nice oak flavor to it as well. But Merlot, what it does is it gives off very earthy notes. So this is going to be a more medium to heavy bodied wine. Merlot is something that pairs very well with a nice meaty dinner like steak, but also can go with other meat, like other types of meat like pork as well. Be part of the aging process. So air is still going to get into the wine. The reason why is because it still needs more time to age. That's why some wineries will say when you have a corked red, they say let it sit for a few more years. It's because it's going to build up the taste to it. But that's also why when you get a bottle of wine that's corked, you have to keep it on its side. The reason why is you want the wine touching the cork, so not too much oxygen will get into it. Yeah.
Oh, hence why all of the wine.
Yes.
So we'll start pouring this. So if you want to bring your glasses up. To get that extra flavor to the wine. But there's also the way that actually happens is not just because the wine is sitting in the barrel. So what happens during barrel aging is even though we seal it off as best as we could, it's actually not completely air shut. Just because, so oak has little cracks throughout it, so oxygen can seep through it as well. So what happens is when that oxygen seeps through the oak, it's pulling that flavor from it and putting it into the wine. This is another time where oxygen will act like our lung, but so this time it's not going to be pushing out carbon dioxide, it's actually going to be pushing out wine. So each barrel every month can lose up to a liter of wine. For us, at full capacity, we can do 1,500 barrels at a time. So we could be losing up to 1,500 liters a month. But the reason why, we know that's going to happen. So when we barrel age wine, we'll have to do multiple barrels of the same wine. So as you come over here, you'll see we're going to label each one at the end. Right now, this is our 2019 Cabernet Sauvignon. We'll have other barrels in it as well. So every month, when there's oxygen sitting at the top now, we're actually going to refill them. Because as much as oxygen helps with winemaking, it's also ruins it if there's too much oxygen. So for example, you open a bottle of wine and you pour it. You get the full taste of that wine. A few days later, when you reopen it again, the taste is starting to change. That's because it's becoming oxidized. And the longer you let it sit, eventually it's going to start to taste like vinegar. And that's when it's completely oxidized. It's also easy to time. It's not a bad idea to drink it this way. But before we actually head back up and try some ice wines, I'm going to tell you about these chairs. So we'll just go back in here a little bit. So if you look at the back of the chairs, on the far left side, you're going to see 7 squares. Those 7 squares represent Mr. Pillittery and his siblings that came here with him to Canada in 1948. Next to that is going to be 5 squares. That represents Mrs. Pillittery and her 4 siblings that came here with her in 1956. Then you're going to see 3 squares go through it. That represents their 3 kids, Charlie, Connie, and Lucy. With the date of the year they bought the property, 1965. And then you're going to direct it over to the 23 circles on the side. So each chair is going to be different because there's going to be a triangle pointing at a different circle. Until you come to this chair right here. Right? So this chair is going to have a triangle at every circle. So this represents the head of the family, which is Mr. Pillittery. But I like to think Mrs. Pillittery is Mr. Pillittery's right hand. And what those triangles represent is where you sit around the table. For him, as the head of the family, he can sit wherever he wants, but everyone has to stay in their spots. I like to think Mrs. Pillittery is the actual boss around here. So she can kick him out of his chair when she wants to.
To be honest.
So I like to think this is actually Mrs. Pillittery.
Yes.
But now we're going to head up and go try some ice wine. So if we just So we're just gonna we'll just wait here until everyone's up and then we'll head in. We actually have a deal on our Pinot Grigio right now, so if you want to try a little bit at the end, I can pour a little bit. No, so I should just leave it here. I'll look at it. So this is a red ice wine. Red ice wine is a little bit harder to find over white ice wine, which you'll mostly see. So compared to white ice wine that gives off very tropical tasting notes, these give off one of those foresty berry notes. So a bit more strawberry, cherry, and raspberry tasting notes. When you try ice wine, don't let it touch the tip of your tongue right away, as ice wine is extremely sweet, and all of your sweet receptors are in the tip of your tongue. So you kind of want to let the ice wine go to the back of your mouth first, and let it sit on top of your tongue as well, and then let the tip of your tongue touch it. Then you'll get just so you can open up your palate and get the full taste of the wine and not just pure sugar.
No, I said in the back, let it go. Yes.
Wine is it pairs well with some spicy food. One thing I like with this one the most is actually chocolate. So dark chocolate and this go very well together. But then you can also drizzle this on top of some chocolate ice cream. That's really good mix too. But then the last thing I usually will do with ice wine is this time of year is kind of cocktail season. So you drink, there's more people drinking things, will be a lot more mixed drinks. So one thing you can do with ice wine is in a cocktail that has simple syrup, instead of using a simple syrup, use ice wine. And it goes much better. If you're actually at a restaurant, and you can actually try cocktails made with ice wine as well, if that's something you do. I hope you enjoyed the tour, and I hope you learned something new on it as well today. If you're interested in picking up any of the wine, I can help you with that. If not, I hope you have a great rest of your day.